All right, so folks, today we have with us Jill Mattson. She studied antiquities and secret societies. She's an award-winning author, healing sound composer, and artist. She's written several books on sound healing, and in her bio it says, "I blend my original music with ancient techniques and embed special sounds in the tracks." Well, that sounds very fascinating. What's the special sounds?
I have all kinds of special sounds. Reading antiquity, they looked at music as a toolbox to change consciousness, to change your feelings, connectivity, even trigger different personality qualities, heal your spleen, lift heavy rocks, grow your garden better, make your warriors more ferocious. It was definitely a toolbox, and underneath the music was mathematics. And some of the ancient sages were quite sophisticated, and they had like a communication of mathematics that could express this music. So I have that in my, I don't know, knowledge base.
Yeah.
And then I spent a year or two to write a book with Sherry Edwards on bioacoustics. And Sherry has a clairaudience that's fabulous. She can hear little tiny volumes that, let's say, you and I can't. So she can hear your cells communicating. When she walks past someone, the sounds that a body makes, for example, to cure diabetes is different than the sounds somebody makes if they have cancer, for example, and she can hear those. So she can walk by someone and hear their health issues. And she was able to do that since a little girl. So she would play with tones as a little girl and come up with, like, live with a headache, for example. Finding one tone would make it go away, one would enhance it. Anyway, I spent several years writing a book on her work and making it very clear and easy and understandable. And she uses the book in her classes because it's clear and understandable. Mm-hmm. And in essence, the periodic chart of elements, meaning everything in our world, is a musical scale. It's mathematics and it's sound.
Right.
Yeah. Mathematics expressed as sound. That's the language of your body. That's the language of plants. And with this mathematics under your belt, you can come up with all kinds of frequencies. For example, one CD, Deep Wave Beauty, has the frequencies associated with vitamins and collagen in your muscles, in your face and neck. So it's a bit of a youthening. Sound is a very powerful force of subtle energy, but subtle energy still means like tiny packets. So you need a certain dosage. And it's, how to put this? Well, let's put it this way. I'm going to segment and then I'll come back. Sure. Royal Rife was a doctor in USA in 40s, and he was using a magnifying lens of crystals that was more powerful than his colleagues. So he was looking at live cancer cells. Mm-hmm. And they kind of look like a jellyfish, you know, they kind of they kind of, like, I don't know, breathe, and you can measure how much they breathe and come up with the pitch or the frequency of the cell. And so let's say the cancer cell was 10 cycles per second, and he would have his patients listen to 1/10. Uh-huh. And the two ways you ingest sound, you're not withheld within your skin. You ingest sound, you ingest EMFs, you ingest all kinds of things you can't see and hear. And so if someone listened long enough, and we're talking about dosage here, that's why I'm off on this segment, then they would get enough 1/10s to kill all the 10 that represented the cancer in the body. So you needed the correct frequency and the correct amount. And the cool thing is that your body's conscious, and although we don't understand, our body understands mathematics, our body does. And when you hear something, like if you're looking for that 1/10, you're going to enjoy it if your body wants it for health. Mm. And then once you've had enough, all of a sudden you don't like it so much. And you kind of, have you ever had a music that you loved and then you've listened it to death and then it's like, oh my God, I'm sick of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's because it did its work. And so that's the complexity and the marvel and the simplicity of getting a proper dosage. So with all these CDs, there is that issue. And then there's a third issue. So we've got the science, kind of like by talking about Sherry and putting numbers and math to everything in matter. And there are numerous ways to get the frequencies of things. But then you can also look at antiquity. And antiquity had really cool stuff. Like, for example, they would have people that were very, very clairvoyant. Think of Donna Eden, maybe. Mm-hmm. And she can see your aura, but she can also see maybe your organs. So she's more clairvoyant than the normal clairvoyant. She's kind of like Sherry Edwards in clairaudience as she is to clairvoyance.
Right.
And with that type of vision, you can see that certain sounds heal the body. You can see that certain sounds, it's like Christmas. It's like all of a sudden your aura fills full of light and all the little black spots disappear. And even the colored light starts turning into dazzling white light, which is more complete than a component color light.
Sure.
And you see the transformation. And so they didn't have to be geniuses. All they had to do was just kind of use the sight that they had and see this complex number pattern or frequency pattern, same thing, the numbers put to cycles per second, is really good for everybody. It's as if, this is me musing, string theory is correct, and different dimensions or universes have different tunings. And this is just me theorizing that if you get a set of numbers or tuning that's similar to the dimension or world you're living in, it's like harmony exists. Mm. And you start to align and fill up full of light, and you now are taking the fast track. And that's what I have in my CDs, but I'm going to just tell you one more story before we segment to some of those ancient tonal patterns.
Sure, go for it.
And I'm kind of excited because I just found this, and I'm a geek, and I get excited about little bits of antiquity or science that I read at times.
That's cool. We need people like
that. Yes, I'm the geek. So anyway, just coming out of a palm text translated in southern India in the Tamil language. It's dated anywhere between 10,500 and 13,000 years ago scientifically. So it's old. It's written by a being called Mayan, who describes living on an island, a big continent in the middle of the Pacific. So it's pre-flood. It would be what our legends refer to as Lemuria. And he's also got ties with the Mayans in South America. So it's really kind of a neat thing. And he describes quantum physics and he doesn't use that word, but he describes the process of creation. And he describes it in terms of shapes, and you can put numbers to it. And his theory of creation then becomes how energy was formed, how it twisted, how it spun in the different stages. And that while describing this, he gets like a frequency process. And it turns out that the shapes that he's describing are like a mandala. They're the blueprints for sacred geometry throughout all of Asia.
Yeah, I was going to say it sounded sacred geometry sounding.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's a guy, and then he shows how the different shapes relate to the elements and forming of the earth. And here's something just to clarify for others, just because I got stuck on it. So just in case someone else got stuck on this, I never quite really understood the impact of the ancient fascination with the elements. And here's why it's so important. It's like you can look at the world as like through a lens of biology, which is different than looking through a lens of physics or chemistry. So if you're looking through the lens of the elements, they're just looking at subtle energy, meaning like here's matter, and then you just go one step lower and everything's subtle energy. And you kind of need words to describe it. In other words, it could be described as a feeling, or it could be described in many ways, but it's something that you don't see or hear. Mm-hmm. For example, think of water, now think of fire, and they're quite different.
Yeah, very.
So what they're doing is they're describing all subtle energy, all that is, and they're naming it so that they have language. So if the Chinese come up with 5 elements, and the Hindus come up with 4, that doesn't really matter. They're just interpreting that energy palette a little different. Mm. It's like you could call Bob by another name, but he's still Bob. Mm-hmm. Of a thing. So when they're talking about the elemental energy, they're talking about like dark matter perhaps, or some type of quantum energy underneath matter and all that is. And they're manipulating that for health, for balance, for spiritual connectivity, to enhance psychic skills, to enhance your health, to enhance your emotional intelligence, enhance your IQ, everything. So it's not just kind of a fun thing. It's like a transparency diagram that fits over everything. And they use it to change energy for their benefit.
Sure. Well, funny enough, like yesterday I went with Jean Marie to see Amma, you know, the Indian grandmother, the hugging grandmother.
Yes.
And obviously we had thousands of people in the room. And at one moment we were chanting the Om. Mm-hmm. 3 times, and doing our mantras. We all got a personalized mantra from Amma. And yeah, I mean, obviously looking through your bio and everything, one of the questions that fascinates me a lot about this is how can we use sound to influence mass consciousness?
Many ways.
Okay.
In ancient, well, let me just segue back. Okay. For example, in my music, I have some of those frequency patterns that can light up the world. We can play those frequency patterns straight, and they're all over YouTube. Or we could play like something like my music. I use those enlightening frequency patterns as like tuning fork sounds because I told you I was a geek guy. I read Robert Bacher's a wonderful physicist who talks about different ways that sound goes through your body. In your ears is kind of like taking in sound like an internet, whereas skin would be more of an analog. It's more a complete ingestion of sound, and it influences you different, whether you get sound through resonance, skin, ears, etc. And he suggests the most powerful are little tiny tones, like the star tones, the geomagnetic tones. Mm-hmm. So that's where and I'm a musician. So I create my own music, I write it and I perform it, and then I put in the background all these little tuning forks and little just washes of these tones. Mm. It's kind of like drive-by healings, and I'm certainly not the only one who can do this. My books are out there so that others will do this.
And this is part of toning, the name of this process?
Oh, the Paint Your Soul has the Fibonacci, nature's spiral patterns. Right. It has the solfeggio tones. I've got a lot of phi in there. I've got a lot of sacred geometry. Simply, it's mathematics created in sound. That's Paint Your Soul. The Stardust is another ancient method where they tune to heaven and earth. So it's kind of like tuning to the macrocosm or the minor cosm, whatever. Either way, it helps you with enlightenment. Mm. So when you tune to the stars, it's literally the frequencies of the stars. I put in that music the frequencies the stars give off in their orbit, because as they kind of change, they alter just a little bit. And that is what we call astrology. And when you read the really early stuff, you see that astrology in its inception was sound. Mm. It wasn't, oh, this is coming up or this is my personality. It was, oops, something difficult's coming, and I'm going to undo it with this song. Or something really good's going to happen, so I'm going to meditate. So like I can take my celestial groceries and stack them all up for the next 3 months. That's the root of astrology. And so I'm doing that in the Stardust CD, along with literal star sounds in the background and frequencies associated with carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. Just, it's very celestial feeling. Mm-hmm. And for those, I know a lot of people don't go for science, and go for science, but not channeling, but I channel as well. And my guides say that when this happens, when you get the right tuning pattern, the right frequency numbers, that it releases energy from chakras above your head. Mm-hmm. They told me, and this is certainly not proven, but my intuition, we'll put it that way, is that Paint Your Soul releases energy from 3 feet above your head, meaning those patterns, that's what they do. And the star tones would be 5 feet above, the chakra 5 feet above your head. And either way, it's enlightening. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now that's the segment. That's one kind of music. Mine's out there for use, or anybody else's. And then I want to get into how ancient people use sound, like let's say Lao Tzu.
Yeah, yeah.
They use sound as like a police force. And I know when I first read that, I kind of had a shallow chuckle, like, ooh, aren't they superstitious, or that's stupid. And I ate my words. I learned more. I tend to read ancient stuff, and I read it through the eyes of today, and I miss it because there's so many different understandings of their world, and it's taken me 25 years to figure that out. And most of that, or much of that, is laid out in my book, The Lost Waves of Time. But besides that, so we're looking at Lao Tzu, and they don't have radio, they don't have a bar up the street, no internet. And in fact, they have a department of measurement in the ancient Chinese government. So the emperor would control the whole country. China had a lot of land, so it was hard to do this. And their preferred method was to tune all of the outside frequencies save nature that anybody heard. Now think of that. The only vibratory source that you hear other than nature or another person is what the government gives you. And there's severe penalties for stepping out of that. Mm. So the emperor would tune the cosmic tune, because energy is always moving, so that the tune, was generally an F, but it would move up and down. He would tweak it. That was his function. And then he would harmonize himself and go into peace and then power, because power was important then, more so than today. And they would harmonize with that tone, put good energy on that frequency. Emotions and sound carry. Hello. Stack waves, they combine. So he would harmonize the root tone, and then the big chief roosters and his government would harmonize another tone, and so forth. And the idea was in the Department of Measurements that as that tone changed, everyone at a musical instrument had to travel to the capital or whatever it was. Their instruments were burned or modified, and they had, like, if you have a flute, you might have like a 440A, but if he changes where you're supposed to tune, maybe you need to tune to 432. So they would destroy the 440 and tune to 432. Mm-hmm. The reason why they did this, they believed that if they had 2 neighboring towns and they tuned to jarring tones, and that's the only source of vibratory influence, and you ingest sound. So if I just to a and you just a and together they sound crappy, mm-hmm. we wouldn't get along. So they would make sure that we're tuning harmoniously.
Right. And isn't that they've done this again in modern times? They've changed the frequency from the 448 or the 440 to 432.
Yes, in fact, it's not just modern times, although people say that, they're just looking back to, let's say, 300 years. If you look over time, the Chinese are mainly tuning to an F, and if you translate that to colored light, that would be green. At the same time, the ancient Hindus are tuning to red, which would be the complementary color. So they're balancing, it's kind of like a seesaw, they're balancing frequencies. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the Druids were tuning often to a D. So when you look throughout time, the tuning note has changed. My theory in the lost wave of time is that music is like the Pied Piper, and it does tune us. So it puts us on an emotional, mental, physical path, and we experience correlating things of the same frequency in all of those realms. So we can learn in a culture that tunes to F, we can learn abundance, lack of abundance, and how to deal with that. We can learn health and how to overcome with that. We can learn things that are mathematically associated with F. And we can then incarnate in another lifetime and learn, like in Hindus, and learn about C. They're still tuning to C. So, and that, of course, would be gross circulation. That's learning to control your anger. I mean, it's a whole different set of things. It's as if God was white light, and then he would manifest into red, and we'd all learn to master that. Mm-hmm. Then the next step would be to learn to master orange. And we go through the color spectrum until we become a master. So in that regard, when you look at history way back, you see that they've tuned to pretty much every note. And that this is, again, theory for me, is that, for a while you tune it like at the root chakra and learn those type of lessons, then the sacral, then the solar plexus, the heart. And the heart was the 432. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And you know what? The throat doesn't feel near as good. But I believe that as future goes on, it's going to be, the tuning note's going to get higher. Just my personal opinion, because we're going to tune to everything. Yeah. Back to this ancient poem text, this Mayan guy says is that as God permeates energy, God, he or she is compatible with everything, but the permutations are not compatible with each other. So part of us becoming a God is learning to harmonize and tune with every tone. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah. So one of the things that I was really fascinated by as well was I've used music as a gardener when I'm just, planting things and watering and that kind of thing. And I've seen improvements in the way that the plants grow when I put music out there, as to opposed to when there's not music. Well, would you go along with that?
Absolutely. And let me tell you some ancient tricks if you'd like.
Yeah, sure.
Agriculture was very important, and sound was a very important part of having a good crop. First of all, they would dance on the seeds in Egypt, and stories about South America, and stories about Atlantis. And they would literally have drum beats, horns, and dancing on planted crops. Think of a seed, and you shake it. It quickens the time it needs to germinate.
Right.
And there was studies in New Mexico in the United States where they took crops. It was a high elevation, I think it was Taos, and they had a limited time period for crops. So they played star tones, the ones I have in my Stardust CD, and they got close to double the yield and they also said the bugs got bigger too. So they were able to use certain sounds, nature sounds, to tune the actual plants and the plant growth, showing a marked improvement. Two more. There's a man called Dan Carlson in the United States on the West Coast. And he probably got into the American Indian stuff. And the American Indian stuff would use bird chirps to enhance crop growth. And what he does is he sells native bird chirps and with plant food. And then he scientifically just studied plants and found that they ingest, I might have this number wrong, but you get the point. Let's say 85% of their nutrients at dawn. And then they ingest the rest in little drips and drabs throughout the day.
Yeah.
But the real critical point for a plant to thrive is what's going on at dawn. So who wants to get up at dawn and fertilize your crop? So he sells the bird chirps. And the idea is how did the plants know it's dawn? And he decided that it was sound. So he sells the bird chirp and the fertilizer. So you can go out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, play your bird chirp, fertilize. He's getting 200% plant growth. I believe he's nominated for a Nobel Prize.
Wow. Okay. So in essence, that means that, you know, all of when in nature, the birds are chanting in the morning, they're encouraging the plant's growth.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
That's
It's all related. And here's another one. This one's fascinating too. Joel Sternheimer, he's a French physicist. He studied, I think, in the United States. Anyway, I believe, he has been working on patents for plant songs. And remember how we talked about Royal Rife looking at a cell and coming up with this frequency? Mm-hmm. So you can look at an amino acid, which is a building block of a plant. And you can look at each one of those amino acids in the correct order for a species of a plant and come up with their frequencies. And he found there were songs. In fact, some of them are recognizable songs. Like one was O Solo Mio.
Very recently, I saw something actually that was being, posted around on the internet, which was someone who put out speakers and recorded crickets and then played it back, and it was a tune.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And I'll get on to that later, but let me finish on Joel. Okay, so with Joel, he then, 2 things. One is, we musicians think we create songs, but perhaps the person who created O Solo Mio was simply near these plants and the song vibrated him. So I think a lot of our music is inspired, and we're nothing other than a conduit, that point. And then moving on to Joel again played the amino acid songs back to the plants, getting 200% plant growth and resistance to drought and disease.
Oh, wow.
So that's cool. Okay, back to the crickets. Yes, if you play with a frequency of, let's say, crickets, and you take it, let me get this straight, down 3 octaves approximately, you'll find a layer of human, like angelic child's choir sounds.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
Yeah, and you can get on YouTube, and if someone hasn't done that, please do. It's fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the tip of the iceberg. I just suggest this, and hopefully there'll be videos out soon. If you take the human voice and raise it 3 octaves, you do that experiment that you observed on the internet in reverse, you'll start to hear crickets. If you then take it up 5, you'll start to hear bird chirps. 7 dolphin sounds, 9 whales, 11 star sounds.
Wow.
It's one universe, or one. Yeah. That cool or what?
That is incredible. Yeah. And so are you in the process at the moment of more projects, more books, more?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we'd love to talk more with you about something that we're putting together here, which is we're arranging for a global freedom festival, either in 2018 or 2019, depending on how quickly we can really arrange everything. And whether you'd be open to participating and collaborating with us and maybe playing there.
I'd be open. You don't know what the future holds for me, but it sounds exciting.
Well, as I said, it's a global freedom festival, so it would be on sovereign lands all over the planet in different countries. So hopefully somewhere near you, wherever you are at that time.
That works.
Yeah, perfect. That would be wonderful. And so if you're open also to collaborating with others, and I'm sure you are, because that's the frequency I'm getting from you. How can people contact you, and what kind of help would you be willingly receiving?
All of my info is on my website, jillswingsoflight.com, Jill's Wings of Light. And also, whoever gets on there, download the free music on the homepage, and I do a newsletter on how to heal with sound, and that's my email. So that's probably the best way to contact me, is right there.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll put a link on this video, and we'll do the video before we put it out, so to make sure.
Okay.
You do it, yeah, brilliant. Okay, and I don't have to wrap this up yet. Are you okay to stay for a little while?
Yes, I can stay for a little bit more. I can.
I wrote down a few things I found on your page here. So obviously we talked a little bit about how the ancients used sound, and I would like to ask you a little bit more about like how it improves health. What is with cells and the voice, all aspects of our health generally.
Okay, well, the voice is a whole nother thing, but okay, energy through resonance transfers on the same frequency. So if you have violin here and a violin here, you play A here, this A sound. So you ingest frequency in places in your body that have like frequency. So I just have a recent gift offering that I came up with called Deep Wave Body Healing. It's a CD. And it came from an out-of-body experience I had, and I perceived that I was in the latter part of Atlantis, and I was watching children play with toy organs, like a spleen or a pancreas.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like very much fun.
Lovely.
Even for me, like, come on. So anyway, what I understood was that they had like these oral traditions, and the earlier Atlanteans were more like Barbara Eden or Sherry Edwards. They were highly clairvoyant, clairaudient, who knows, maybe not even Homo sapiens. And they could see through the body at any given point in time and hear everything that was going on in the body. So they could look at you and see your brain, your lungs, everything. And it's all, when healthy, a certain frequency, and it's therefore a certain color, same thing. So when the color started to go dark or get off, in other words, let's say you and I have an argument and we're arguing over something, it's maybe the frequency of C, and it's feeling and it's a negative energy, then anything in our body that's a C is going to, both of us, we're going to house that negative energy in that specific location. So anytime you go to the mall or shopping and you're around other cranky people, you're ingesting stuff, like it or not. Cell phones, you're ingesting stuff.
Oh, I can't ever wait to get out of those places if I'm ever in them. I try to
know.
them as often as much as possible.
And so you constantly ingest it, and then they would just hum it into tune. And so then once I had that little vision, with science, you can come up with frequencies of healthy organs. And through China, they had in their antiquity methods of that process. So the body healing CD, I go through the organs, 13 organs in the body, and we have their sounds, their harmonics. Harmonics are very important after ripple of sound, further defining health. And you can go through and start to learn not only the frequencies and tuning of organs, but for me, I learned the feeling of organs. It's like I was God, and my liver and my lungs and my intestines were like my people. And I could tell when they were out of sorts because I learned to connect with them. And so that was very powerful. That's just one way. You can, in my book, Secret Sounds, Ultimate Healing, it's the work of Sherry Edwards in bioacoustics, and also the work of using your voice. Your body's holographic, and there are many ways to look at everything in your body in terms of frequencies. There are machines out that do your aura. You can go through your sweat.
Yes, I did the aura one.
Yeah.
At a time.
Yeah, Sherry Edwards has she just uses this software from the man called Joseph Fourier, maybe the 50s, 60s. He created a way to take white light and break it into component colors, or to take sound, likewise, and break it into component pitches. We think our voice is one sound. Our voice is a combination of our thoughts, our feelings, our subconscious mind, our liver, the argument last night, the little flower we picked up earlier in the afternoon. All that is within, and it constantly changes as we change. So you can break down the voice and look at every frequency in your body. Wow. And then she has software, and some of it's free. So you could try nanovoice.org. And my book, Secret Sounds, explains all kinds of ways to use this. And so you can take a look at anything in your body. It's like the stuff of Royal Rife Plus. Royal Rife has a library of sounds and frequencies to cancel diseases and maladies. But what Sherry does is, in addition, she will look at positive processes, let's say digestion. It's a chemical formula if you get on PubMed. And then if you put in the mathematics of the different elements in that chemical formula for digestion, it works. The math is correct.
Wow.
So when you're not...
Oh, hello, Jill. Sorry, we just had a bit of a connection issue. Can you hear me now? Hello? It might be hers. Hello, Jill? Can you send a message on here?
You can go, well, she's offline, but you could send a message. You're shutting down mine.
Hello, Jill? Oh, you're back.
Hi. Yes.
Great. Okay, yeah. So please go back like a couple of sentences.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you get on PubMed or some other site, you can look at chemical formulas for processes in the body, such as digestion or methylene cycle. There's several, numerous. And for digestion, if you put in the cycles per second of the components, remember, everything in the periodic chart has a frequency. The mathematics works. So when you are eating food but not getting your nutrients, we're out of tune. Your digestion is out of tune. Furthermore, your digestion is a perfect harmonic cascade. Harmonic, I like to describe it as like an after ripple of sound. It follows a mathematical formula. So in that case, for example, you can look at your digestion and see what you might be eating it, but you're not utilizing it. You can look at that. And then you can start to tune it. And then there was another software that was off of that called ASA, developed by a man called Chris, I'm blanking on his last name, but anyway, he had like a Rubik's Cube of all these processes in the body and the harmonic cascades. So you can see that, like if you cut your finger and you have a flu and you have a headache, all these waves interact. And we think they're all separate, but they all interact and there's resonance within the body. And with this ASA software, you could even look at all the harmonic chains and look at the root cause.
Wow.
Because they're like dominoes. You know, if you get the third step in a harmonic chain off, then the following chains are also out of tune. Right. And so there's the medicine of the future. They're the diagnosis of the future. And I know medicine doesn't like you to use that word, but you can forget the words for health. You could say there's the diagnosis for being in tune.
Sure. Well, you say of the future, but you know, really from the past, right? That this is knowledge that we've forgotten.
Yes. And you can also use it for scientific research. You know, rather than just doing ideas and stabs in the dark, you can go in through bioacoustics and look at a disease that we don't have a cure for, like autism, and then go in and say, oh, and I'm making this up, okay, Sherry has this, but I'm not sure I recall it correctly. I think it was not absorbing a certain vitamin, maybe A or E. There was a problem in digestion associated with autism. Mm-hmm. So there would be a great place to do a scientific study. It's kind of like sound-wise, you can look at what works or what is the issue. and then study it. So you don't have to mess around with trial and error so much.
Right, right. Makes sense to
Really
me.
move us ahead, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And then you've been very proactive with writing books, and I would like, because there's a lot of people out there, I'm sure, who are looking for ways to heal, and they're maybe thinking, well, where can I find this stuff? Where is it accessible? You've given your website, but there's plenty of things on YouTube, right? Like binaural beats and other sound frequencies that you can find and tune into, and while you sleep and other things. Do you have some advice to give to people where to start with this?
Well, I wrote a book for that very purpose. It's called Ancient Sounds, Modern Healing. The idea was to introduce today's availability of techniques. For example, the binaural beats. I have a chapter or two in binaural beats, and then I have one on emotional healing. Then I have one on physical healing. Then I have one on energy healing, one on learning disabilities. And that book is like a recipe book. How to use very inexpensive or free methods to tune in almost any area of your life. You can achieve wholeness, enlightenment, meaning health, stability, emotional, mental, and spiritual connections, really through any window. Like if you are in perfect health, it's easier to be in a good mood. If you're in crappy health, it's easy to be in a crappy mood.
Yeah, definitely.
And so when you're feeling good, it's easier to think good. It's all related. So you can choose to heal from any venue. I have the Healing Flower Symphonies, which I'm offering for today, because I think that's the level that we need most today, not necessarily in antiquity, but I think it's most powerful today. And I'm using the ancient Greek catharsis. So you go in and you pull out negative emotions, and then you start getting habits or repeats for positive emotions. The ancient idea was, it's kind of stupid to take 800 years to enlighten. 800 lifetimes or whatever it is. You could do it in 1 or 2. And they say the fast track to improve on all levels is not use your willpower. That's what they felt was stupid.
It's
because
not what,
your willpower.
Your willpower, okay, yeah.
Because when you're using your willpower, you're focusing on one thing at a time. Like, let's say I decide I want to be patient. Well, then I'm not controlling my temper. I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And then I get distracted and I forget all about the patience. So it's very hard. What they would do is they did it through sacred space, building, architecture, diet, or different frequency, levels of frequency and sound. So they would, like for emotions, I have music to give you habits, repeat. Each time you listen and feel an emotion, you get in a repeat for a habit. Like being patient is being patient 300 times. Well, that's kind of hard with your willpower, but if you sleep with the music on at night, it's not. And they would do that, and my new book coming out in the spring is going to be converting all this knowledge that I have on sound and music in space. So they're thinking about frequency generators that don't require anything other than you just being around.
Wow.
And that would be music. And the book will come out hopefully in the spring on space and your surroundings and building.
Wonderful. And that can help speed up our shift even more.
Oh, yeah.
Into the new paradigm. Well, it's been brilliant chatting with you, Jill. We'd love to invite you to where we are here in Holland whenever you'd like to visit. You're more than welcome to come and see what we're up to. We've got loads of our own projects going on here, setting up new social architecture, environmental projects, new technologies to basically the internet software that they're creating is designed in fractals and holons. So it's when you start to interface with it, you can train your brain to think more like nature does again. So while you're doing your beautiful work with sound healing, there is beautiful stuff happening everywhere, and it's all starting to come together. And we're bringing all of these beautiful people from all of these different areas and specialties in life that have all of this wonderful knowledge to bring us back to enlightenment. are what we were born to be, I think, like the stewards of nature. So yeah, please come and visit us whenever you can. That would be wonderful. And perhaps, interview with us again in the future. If you enjoy to do that, that would be wonderful too. The Global Freedom Fest, we'll keep you very much updated with that and what's happening.
Okay.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jill.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, that's John, Jean Marie.
Thank you, Jill. Talk soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.